Okay, in the previous video, we have seen the relation of the heart sound with different valves and the cardiac cycle phases. Now, in this video, we're gonna see that what are the relation of the JVP with the heart sounds and the cardiac cycle phases and the valvular opening and the closing. So let's start. First of all, we should know that what is the JVP. JVP is having the A wave, then the C, then X, and V and Y, right? So A wave is when the atrium actually contracts. That is this part of the atrium that contracts, it leads to the A wave. Basically, JVP is the pressure that is transmitted from the atrium to the jugular vein, and we can measure the jugular vein pressure. That actually tells us what is the pressure inside the atrium, right? So when the atrium contracts, the pressure is increased, so the JVP will be increased, represented as the A wave, right? Then we have the C wave. C wave is that when there is atrial contraction, the whole of the blood goes into the ventricle, right? Now the ventricle is going to contract, before which we have the tricuspid closure and the mitral closure, right? Tricuspid and the mitral closure needs to uh, tricuspid and the mitral valve needs to be closed, after which the ventricle will contract, and which leads to the bulging of the tricuspid into the atrium. Now these are the two things. This is the A wave. Sorry, this is number one. No issues. Okay, so this is number one part, that is the A wave due to contraction, and this is the number two part, that is the C wave. C wave due to the bulging of the tricuspid valve. Now we know that bulging of the tricuspid valve will occur only when the ventricle is contracting, right? So we can see A wave actually occurs when there is atrial systole, and now it is increasing, right? Then in when isovolumetric contraction, uh, before it before the isovolumetric contraction, the blood came to the ventricle, but now as it is isovolumetrically contracting, now there is outbulging of the tricuspid valve, C leading to the wave C, right? After this contraction, after this outbulging and the contraction, these two things resolve. That is, there is no contraction of the atrium, nor there is any bulging of the tricuspid valve. So these two things are not there. So because of these two things, the atrium pressure was increasing. Now these two things are not there, so atrial pressure will decrease. So there is X descent, right? So X descent is the atrial relaxation and the downward displacement of the closed tricuspid valve. See, make sure the tricuspid valve is not open yet. Okay. Now we have the V wave. V wave is basically when more of the blood comes to the atria from outside due to the vena cava and etc. More of the blood is coming into the atria, which again leads to the increase in the pressure of the atria, so it leads to the V wave. That is the third positive wave, that is the V wave, right? Then we have the Y descent. Y descent is when there is blood into the atrium that goes into the ventricle. So when the blood from the atrium goes into the ventricle, that again leads to decrease in the pressure of the atrium and leads to the Y descent. The very superficial thing that you need to remember is there are three positive waves and two negative waves in the JVP, right? This is the thing that you need to remember. So three positive waves are basically the A wave, the C wave, and the V wave. This one, and the this one, right? And two negative are the X descent and the Y descent. And now where they are placed? A is due to atrial systole, so it is present near the atrial systole. C is due to bulging during the ventricular contraction, so it is near the isovolumetric contraction. Then Y is basically when the atria is relaxed and the blood comes out, blood from the outside comes into the atrium, so it is basically during the isovolumetric relaxation. And Y is when the blood flows from the atrium to the ventricle, so it is during the rapid filling phase, right? The thing that they will ask you is the relation with the heart sounds. So this is important. The relation with the heart sounds is important. The thing now you need to remember is when the mitral valve close, as written here, when it will close, obviously the tricuspid valve will close, right? So before the valve close, there is atrial contraction, right? So there will be A wave just before the mitral valve closure and the S1. Before S1, just before S1, from where the S1 is starting, there is A wave. Okay, A wave, then S1 will come, and during S1, at the last phase of S1, when basically the mitral valve close, after that it will bulge into the atrium. After the closure of this valve, the mitral and the tricuspid valve, then it will bulge after the closure. So the closure is depicted by S1. After the closure there will be C wave. So you need to know that there is A wave, then S1, and then C wave, right? This is the thing that you need to know. Obviously after C wave there will be X descent. This is by default. Now the what is the place of the V wave in this diagram? See, V wave is basically whenever we have blood from the vena cavas to the atrium, right? So V wave is coming after S2. S2 is when there is closure of the aortic valve and the pulmonary valve. That is, the blood from the ventricles is gone, is totally gone. Now the whole of the heart is in the, like relaxed phase. After that, the filling of the heart will occur. So filling of the heart, so the thing that you need to know is V wave occurs after S2, and the Y descent occurs during S3. During the rapid filling phase, we have the Y. During the rapid filling phase is we have the S3. S3 is only mostly pathological, so we need not to worry about that so much. So the summary is A wave occurs before S1, then S1 comes, then we have the C wave, after which we have the X descent. Then before uh, that is after S2, after S2 we will have the V wave, and during S3 we will have our Y wave, Y descent. This is the thing that you need to remember.